Thanks to our Patreon members for helping to make this episode possible, and we're now available on all the major podcasting platforms. You can find more information at the links below. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another fireside chat wherein I discuss a famous parable from philosophy or world theology and mythology and talk about what it means and what it's trying to tell us. So today's example comes from the Yaksha Prashna, which is a famous section of the Mahabharata. And I love the Mahabharata, by the way. It is so great. Unfortunately, it's hugely long. Like, it's as long as an encyclopedia. It's just massive. But you can find all kinds of shortened versions and whatnot. But just be aware that the complete thing is like 30 volumes or something. But what's great about it is, it just makes no sense. And yet it's so wonderful and rich. And there's so much in there. So it is like the universe in a story. And in this story, it seems simple at first, but the more you think about it, the less simple it becomes. And so the 5 Pandava brothers, who are the main protagonists in this family feud that's going on, that is the center of the story of the Mahabharata, which is, and I apologize for my pronunciation here, these names always give me trouble. Yudhisthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadeva. They're the 5 brothers, and their parentage is all over the map, which we'll see. So they're not like standard 5 brothers. Anyway, so they've been exiled for various reasons, and they're wandering in the forest. And one day they felt thirsty, and they sent Sahadeva to find water. He discovered a beautiful lake, but as he was about to drink, a mysterious voice warned him, "Answer my questions before drinking, or you shall perish." Sahadeva ignored the warning, drank the water, and instantly fell dead. One by one, Nakula, Arjuna, and Bhima followed, meeting the same fate. Finally, Yudhisthira arrived and saw his brothers lying unconscious. The same voice, belonging to a Yaksha, a celestial being, not exactly a god, but like say maybe an angel or something like this, warned him. Unlike his brothers, however, Yudhisthira agreed to answer the Yaksha's questions before drinking. Now, in the original, there's not a lot of questions. There's a number of questions, but I'll just go through a few of them that are sort of the more famous ones of here. One question is, what is the greatest wonder in the world? And Yudhisthira answered, day after day, an infinite number of beings die, yet the living desire to live forever. This is the greatest wonder. What is the path to salvation? He answered, following the path of righteousness and wisdom leads to salvation. What is true wealth? He answered, contentment is the greatest wealth. And who is truly happy? And he answered, one who has no debt and is satisfied with simple food is truly happy. Impressed by his wisdom and by his appeal to the path of righteousness, the Yaksha revived his brothers and blessed them. Now, so what? Wait a second. So here we go. So seeming simple story, person goes to lake to drink, spirit, God comes to him and says, hey, don't drink until you answer my questions. So Yudhisthira says, yes, I'll answer your questions, answers them correctly, and so then can drink safely. However, why did the 4 other brothers drink from the lake after having seen the other brothers dead, right? Like you see your brother dead next to a lake, and the lake says to you, or the spirit from the lake says to you, don't drink of the water without answering my questions or I'll kill you. Now, maybe the first one, Sahadeva, maybe it was okay for him to go, what is it? It was a spirit. Like, I don't believe this spirit. What is he talking about? I don't know. But so he drinks and he just drops dead. Now, you're the second brother, right? Here you come, right? You walk up and you're like, so Bhima, I forget the order that they come in. Bhima walks up and says, oh yeah, look, Sahadeva is dead. My brother's on the ground dead next to a lake. I sent him to get water because we're thirsty. And the lake says to me, If you drink the water, you're going to die, perish instantly. And you go, oh, no, I'm going to drink the water, right? Like this is sketchy, right? Like this is not what you would think people would do. You'd think people would be like, wow, but this happens not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times. Right? So 4 times does this happen before the last brother shows up and is like, hey, all my brothers are dead on the ground. Maybe I should listen to the lake and answer the questions. A further complication, okay, so that's just one of the complications, is that, again, and the Mahabharata is just great for stuff like this, is that this is just, it's kind of funny. I think it's kind of funny, kind of hilarious that they just one after the other drink from the lake and drop dead right next to them. I mean, you're like, okay, not very bright, these guys. These brothers, not very bright. Another hilarious aspect of this, at least to me, is that Arjuna, Bhima, these are all the children of gods, right? Arjuna is the son of Indra. So it would be as if there was a parable in the Bible where God says to Jesus, hey, don't drink from that river or else I will smite you dead. And Jesus goes, well, I'm not going to pay attention to that. I'm going to drink from the river. And then he drops dead, right? Like, it's like, wait, what? What's going on? Wait a second. What's going on here? Why? What is the message, which we'll get to? There is actually lots of messages here, of course. And a part of this also is that Yudhisthira answers these questions, but it turns out that the spirit who is speaking is actually an incarnation of Yama, a god who is, in fact, the father of Yudhisthira. And so it is this moment of him speaking to his father and proving that his worth, that he has been paying attention, that he has been learning things here on the planet, that stuff that he does understand and has achieved a level of wisdom and is on the path to salvation, which of course the Mahabharata is in part about entirely. Is that this how do we gain wisdom? What is the nature of wisdom? What is the path to true enlightenment? It comes up over and over again. And so you'd think, wow, how is it that the children of gods who have had many, many magical adventures would just wander in and completely ignore what is a clear invocation of the spirits? Now, often when you hear this parable discussed, they move to the wisdom of Yudhisthira's answers, which is there. So, but let's start with that other question that's raised. What is the message there? What are we trying to be told? And this is something that I think is maybe unique or at least rare in the major world religions and mythological systems. The Greeks kind of shared this a little bit, which is the gods and humans are all is probably a slight exaggeration. Generally, they are flawed and imperfect, and they're subject to making these sorts of really dramatic errors. And what you learn or what you can take away from reading the Mahabharata or the Ramayana is this notion of the continual opportunity to pay attention to the spiritual messages that are around us, that the universe is always giving us. Like there's this continuous series of messages that we're being told that we're just ignoring. We absolutely don't pay attention to them. And yet we know that it's stupid, right? And so my favorite example of this, or at least, well, probably my favorite one, certainly a good one, is no one should ever have had a second hangover, because hangovers are really bad. They feel terrible. But the first one, fairsy squaresy. Even though you've seen other people, probably by this time of your life, before you've had one, you've seen other people maybe who've had bad hangovers, and you go, wow, that looks unpleasant. So you see your brother dead on the ground, and you think, wow, that doesn't look good. I don't think I'm going to do that. And yet you do, and you have that first hangover, which I kind of feel is fairsy squaresy. Like everybody gets a free hangover. But the second one, like, yeah, right? Like, where does that one come from? Right? It comes from, it's not that your brother was dead on the ground by the lake. It's that you were dead on the ground by the lake. And then you went back to the lake and said, yeah, I think I'll drink some more, without answering the questions, right? Like, this is, you go, well, okay, that'll be fine. This time it's going to be great. Oh, no. You know, how many dead versions of yourself are there by the lake before you start thinking, hangovers, very, very bad idea. I think I'll not have any more of those. And that's just sort of, for me, just a kind of example of what the message is. And it's hard to see it if you've only read one parable from Mahabharata, but you get this just continual sort of relentless, like, hey, like, stop. Like, what are you doing? Like, just pay attention. Just pay attention, get some wisdom, get some righteousness, and you'll just do a lot better. And here we see even the children of the gods, who are more or less gods themselves in many ways, are subject to just making the same exact errors that everybody else makes. But when we stop, when we pay attention, when we try and apply wisdom and understanding, then we're resurrected. Then we come back, in this case, literally, we're raised back from the dead by Yama, who is the godlike, no, he's God. Yama is officially a god of Yudhisthira. So that is the sort of, for me, the more important part, because the kinds of wisdom that he speaks is, it's all great, right? There's no, I don't want to discount the wisdom that he applies in responding to these questions, because they are great questions, like, who is truly happy? One who has no debt and is satisfied with simple food is truly happy. I'm like, oh, it's a reasonable response, but would I make that case, right? Is this the person who is truly happy? What is the true wealth? Contentment is the greatest wealth. I'm sort of more on board with that one. What is the path to salvation? Following the path of righteousness and wisdom leads to salvation, which is one of those answers that just says, okay, now we have to figure out what righteousness and wisdom are, right? And then what is the greatest wonder in the world? I love this one, by the way, that day after day, numberless beings die, yet the living always desire to live forever. This is the greatest wonder, which is a way of saying, even though we know this is not the case, still that desire is innate in us. It just lives in there. It just, cannot be extinguished. And so I think his responses are interesting, and certainly there's much reflection and commentary on all of this, of course, because if you think the Mahabharata is long, the commentaries on the Mahabharata are like they're unnumberless. They're countless numbers of pages of these things, but they're great to look at. And those questions are raised and are meant to be pondered, which is another thing the Mahabharata does that you rarely get. So Socrates asks questions of people, but he kind of knows the answer he wants, and he's going to badger them into doing something. The Mahabharata keeps asking questions, and sometimes, like here, you're not sure what is the best answer, and you're not sure that the people you're rooting for actually give the best answers. And sometimes they absolutely don't. They just go up and drink the water and drop dead, right? Like, which is clearly not the right answer. And these are 4 of our 5 heroes make the same mistake. So this is part of the wonderful richness of the Mahabharata, and why it can strike people who aren't familiar with the tradition as so odd, is because we want the flawless hero, right? We want the unrivaled, the perfect, the sinless, who is going to show us the path of perfection in this. And the Mahabharata shows us a complex, confusing world of choices and sketchy ideas and unwisdom and unrighteousness and sin and failure, basically by everybody. And that is just a very different experience. So a very small selection of a famous parable from the nearly infinite Mahabharata that wants us to think both about, what are the answers to these questions? What is the greatest wonder in the world? What is true wealth? But also the nature of paying attention to the signs that, quote unquote, the universe is always sending us about what we should be doing, what we should be thinking, and how we should be behaving. And both of those are just, I think, powerful things to contemplate. Thank you.